Good morning. I'll now call the November 27th Budget Committee meeting of Council to order. Are there any declarations of interest at this time? Seeing none, I will move to our land acknowledgement statement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nation and all Indigenous peoples. On behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the land and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. We are at item D in our agenda today, presentations. We have no presentations or deputations today, bringing us to item F on the agenda, 2025 Business Plan and Budget. Item F1, 2025 Wastewater Business Plan and Budget. General Manager Molinari, I will now pass this over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the Treasurer has a few words to say. Oh,
or maybe
not.
Maybe not. We'll leave it for later. There may be something important then.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. So, I guess we're at the water wastewater budget, and if I can bring everyone to page 111 of the budget binder, we'll get started. So our water wastewater org chart is split into two groups, with the water and wastewater operators completing testing, monitoring, and operations work in the field, and supported by our operational support and compliance and approval group. So the business unit is supported by 14 full-time positions, including one new water quality analyst FTE. So moving on to our tax-supported budget summary, which is on page 112 up to 115. So on page 115, we have our water wastewater budget document. And so looking at the overall increases, the main driver for the 2025 budget is the regional charges, which account for about $825,000 of the $1.2 million total increase. And the remaining $420,000 is made up of salaries and benefits, which are about $246,000. We have contingency, cost of living around $40,000, an increase to our indirect costs of about $106,000. And some software licensing, which is new for this year, of $15,000, which is for our data loggers for our meter readers. And finally, we have some minor increases for growth and inflation of about $15,000 for our materials and supplies, uniforms, training, and communications. And happy to answer any questions on the operating budget.
Thank you very much. Questions? I'm not seeing any at this time.
Great. So moving along, we've got our previously approved capital, which is Addendum 1, Item 1, page 3. And right at the bottom of the page after library, we've got the water wastewater section. So we have 10 carry forward projects that are listed on the page. 4 are to be closed or awaiting delivery of fleet. 4 are on track to be completed in 2025, and the remaining 2 are multi-year projects which are proposed to be completed in 2026. And happy to answer any questions.
Councillor, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to come back to the budget summary. Page 113 notes what the new rates will be, but doesn't really note what the previous rates were. So what were the previous rates? And maybe we can just talk about the 35 cubic meters per month usage, 'cause that's where the majority of our users are.
So through you, Madam Mayor, the current water rate is $2.41 a cubic meter, and the wastewater rate is $2.32 a cubic meter for usage under 35 cubic meters.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, so moving along, we have our 2025 proposed capital, which is on pages 353 to 382. Okay, so we have, there are 3 water projects, 2 wastewater projects, and 2 fleet purchases proposed in the 2025 budget. We have, the first project is a preliminary design, 25001 for the Woodbine Avenue Employment Land Servicing. This project will help us to move forward with, as potential developers come in on our employment lands, to be able to work with them and ensure that we have a good workable servicing solution for those lands. We also have the Water Quality Partnership Project, 25003, which we've discussed with council prior to the budget, which is a very important project for us in partnership with the region in order to model our network and ensure that we have a good strategy for reducing and minimizing flushing, reducing those costs, and having a tool to be able to effectively manage that our network going forward. Also, we have 25004, which is our wastewater rehabilitation project. So similar to our road rehabilitation program, this project will evaluate our wastewater linear infrastructure, identify deficiencies, and update our asset management prioritization model, just to make sure that our network is operating efficiently and maximize its service life. So those are some of the highlights, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor I'm sorry. Councillor Roy DeClemente, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Water Quality Partnership Project, the description doesn't appear to reflect the, this is a top-up for the 85,000 that we're already spending, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've carried forward the 85,000.
Yeah.
It's small in comparison. Once we tender this project, if depending on the results that come in through that RFP, if we need the 85,000, we'll use it. But we're thinking that the project should be enough to stand on its own. We just kind of held on to it just to make sure that we're okay following that assignment. It
would be helpful if we were able to reflect that in the sheets, that there is an additional fund, because it's confusing. It's like the comments that I've made with the modernization project. You're carrying forward projects, and then you're adding or supplementing with your things. And I know that 1.1 million versus 85,000 isn't a huge connection, but it is something we've already invested in, and we're already been work should already have been started on this. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can certainly update that sheet.
Other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, so moving along, we've got our 10-year capital, which is on Addendum 1, Item 2, page 7. Okay, so our 10-year capital is valued at about 9.3 million. That includes approximately 7 million for our water rehabilitation and water quality projects, about 1.3 million for wastewater operations to manage and maintain our network, and finally approximately $1 million for our fleet replacements. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes our water, wastewater budget. I'll pass it over to the treasurer.
You do have budget review to be received. Do you want to take that motion first?
I have a motion here. We'll take, just before we speak, be it resolved that the 2025 water and wastewater business plan and budget review be received. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Foster. All those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any proposed amendments for the 2025 water and wastewater budget? I'm not seeing any at this time, so we'll move along. We're now at item 2, Budget Committee deliberation continued. I'll now ask General Manager Marshall to provide us with an overview of any remaining items from day 2 of Budget Committee meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Earlier last week, at the end of last week, we provided an addendum package number 4, which summarized the amendments that were recommended by committee to date. It gave a summary of where we stood in terms of our tax levy pressure and provided some supplementary information that was requested regarding some capital projects. So we're happy to answer any questions regarding those pieces of information that we handed out.
Councillor Leahy, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. I had a point of clarification that I would like to ask the treasurer, Mr. Marshall. With regard to the discussions that took place for the mayor and council's expenses and advertising, another councillor suggested that the amount for advertising for the town was, for communications, was over $1 million. And so it left me with the impression I wanted to look more into that figure. And so in doing so, I found on the communications budget is actually only $68,000, which reflects actual paid advertising, including paid advertising, digital advertising, posters, curb signs, and the remaining amount of over $1 million is actually salaries and benefits and other costs. So is my understanding correct that the accurate figure for advertising and communications for the town of East Goldenberry is $68,000 and not $1 million?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I think what you're referring to is the branch budget for the communications and customer service area. So if that's what you're referring to, so that includes staff who are working on communications as well. The line item for advertising is what we actually, the external cost, so it's a contract cost, and that's just in that branch. But there are communications that are done by our staff that would be included. So I don't know if I can say that we only spend $68,000 on communications. I don't think that's a fair statement, because I think our staff do work very hard on getting communications out that aren't charged like through a contracted staff or contract external agency. But so I don't know if that helps clarify it, but.
Well, yes, it does, because the impression that was left was that we spent more than $1 million potentially for those members of who were in the council chambers or watching the video, when in fact it's approximately $68,000 or a little bit more. Is that my understanding is correct?
So through you, Madam Mayor, so I think what I was trying to say is that the 68 is for payments to external agencies, but there are communications that are done by our staff that is included in this budget that we wouldn't pay an external person for. So I don't know if it's a fair statement to say we only spend 68,000 on communication. So.
Thank you very much for the clarification. So I will rephrase it and say that we do not spend more than $1 million on advertising. Is that correct?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I would say that the budget for the communications group is it includes customer service, and so that breakdown isn't over $1.5 million. So.
Thank you very much.
Other questions, comments? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I previously, when we were reviewing the capital budget, and this relates under Parks, Recreation, and Culture, I previously sent in an amendment to the clerks. It's regarding PR 25014, and it relates to the Civic Center council chambers. Here we sit, refresh. The budget line item is $370,000. So I previously submitted an amendment to not proceed with that. I know in the amendment and the supporting material that there was a request to go back to staff and comment on that. And the information that we received back didn't necessarily directly provide a different scope of work. I'm wondering if Mr. Karmazin could comment on that, because I would like to proceed with the amendment that I did submit, but just in case there is some further discussion on that, I would like some clarification. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Karmazin?
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Our facility staff had a chance to review the work required and have estimated that we would require approximately $30,000 to do some structural work and access and egress with regards to accessibility doors. That would also supplement the work with corporate services and IT and their respective capital project to do audiovisual upgrades and digital upgrades within the chambers. So we've since been able to revise that estimate, and so we would be requesting that amount be included with that capital budget request that the councillor has referenced.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So just in follow-up from a logistics perspective, I guess directed to the clerk, the amendment that I did submit was to forego the $370,000. I'm happy to stand down from that 370, and I'm not sure if it needs to be voted on first and then a new vote to support 30,000, but I definitely would be in favor of supporting increased accessibility to the chambers, but I do not think it's appropriate at this time to be moving forward with a full refresh, so to speak, and spending $370,000 of taxpayers' money. So I'll look for direction on that.
Thank you. Councillor Roy Clemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I appreciated the information that was provided to us in the addendum package, and I wanted to, my thinking is that we would likely remove the council chambers refresh and introduce a new capital project, which is something along the lines of accessibility and or AV. So I just wanted to kind of talk about the customer service 25002, the audio-visual automation. So that also sort of indicated that there would need to be in physical interruptions, and I just didn't know if we could perhaps cut that one as well, or and just leave it at accessibility doors, or whether staff felt strongly that that IT upgrade needed to be done. And so the second part of my question would be, could we make the project a $50,000 project to do audiovisual and accessibility doors? So to rescope it.
So through you, Madam Chair, the audio-video upgrades are really to make sure that our redundancies are in place and effective. So that amount is in fact needed so that we have backup systems and so that we can produce a seamless council production. And so it is, it's not in the nice-to-have category, it's in the need-to-have category. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So just my previously asked question to the clerk, but since then, Councillor Roy D. Clemente has astutely observed the opportunity to review that IT, as Ms. Gandhi called out. So again, from a logistics standpoint, I would defer to the clerk's department if you want me to pull my amendment or introduce a new one, as Councillor Roy D. Clemente called out as well. So I defer to the clerk on that.
Go ahead,
Through
please.
you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Johns, your amendment was never introduced into the committee. So this is an item that it's really up to you to decide if you would like to bring it forward in the same manner or make any further amendments at this point, and then we're more than happy to facilitate bringing it up to the screen.
Go ahead, please.
So I like the idea of ensuring that we're clear in that we aren't proceeding with the refresh at the 370,000. So I think that standing with that amendment would be appropriate. And then, as Councillor Roy D. Clemente called out, I would fully support if she wished to introduce a new amendment that addressed the scope of what was just discussed and suggested about what was needed.
Go ahead, please.
I think we can do it in one fell swoop, and that is that that Budget Committee not approve the $370,000 Civic Center Council Chambers refresh project, and that we direct staff to prepare a new capital project for $30,000 to address code compliance and accessibility issues in the chambers. And that can be your motion. I'm just trying to make it easier.
Go ahead, please.
So, Madam Mayor, I would defer to the clerk and finance team under strong mayor powers and the fact that we are issuing amendments against the budget. Again, happy to defer. So just looking for logistics on this.
General Manager Marshall, a little input into this one?
Yes, so through you, Madam Mayor, we can do that. So there'd be two amendments that would be proposed. One would be to remove the capital project for $370,000, and the second one would be to introduce a new one for $30,000.
So with that, again, sorry, Madam Mayor, am I okay to?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Didn't want to speak out of turn. So with that information, I would be happy to move the amendment that I submitted. So I defer to you to lead us down that path if there's any discussion, Madam Mayor, on that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion at this point? Madam Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just bear with us for a moment as we're working collaboratively with finance to ensure that we have the adequate numbers in the amendment. So we'll have that ready in a few minutes.
I want to bring up the Op Center next.
Okay.
Once
Through you, Madam Mayor, on the screen before you are the proposed amendments that have been moved by Councillor Johns. So perhaps you can have a review.
Do all members have it in front of them at this time? Be it resolved, the Budget Committee recommends the Council amend the Parks, Recreation and Culture 2025 capital budget as follows. And then following that is be it resolved that the Budget Committee recommend Council amendment the Parks, Recreation and Culture 2025 capital budget as follows. Are there questions with this? This is moved by Councillor Johns. All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Crone, I believe you had something to bring forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to follow up on another item that we had asked staff for some feedback, and that's the capital project PR 25-016, the Operations Center surface upgrades. From, I can't remember, Madam Clerk, if through you, Madam Mayor, if I set this in as an amendment or not. Probably similar along to what Councillor Johns did, but given the information provided back by staff that the surface of the yard today is very similar to what the old Ops Center used to be, and that we think we're in pretty good shape the way it is, I think we're in a position to forego the budget of $600,000, and so I would like to either introduce or reintroduce my amendment to delete that $600,000 capital expense from the budget. Madam Clerk, you okay?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we don't currently have an amendment on, but I believe Councillor Roy DeClemente did have her hand up.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Councillor Crone is of a similar mind to myself. What I actually sent something to the clerk that added a little bit more flesh on the bones, as it were. I'm mindful that our health and safety committee has made a recommendation to staff, and so they're doing their due diligence to bring it forward to us as having something that's been flagged. So what I wanted to do was acknowledge that that it was considered, and I created some whereases there for Councillor Crone to consider as a friendly amendment. But it's essentially that the current surface at the ops yard meets all standards and regulations, and whereas the current surface is a municipal standard for other facilities, and whereas the current current conditions are similar to the previous ops yard, that we do not proceed with this project at this time. And so it's providing some context for why we're not going ahead and not necessarily supporting the Health and Safety Committee's request. Thank you.
Go ahead, please, Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I agree with what my colleague, Councillor Roy DeClemente has said. I think also there are some environmental benefits to foregoing the paving. It's much better for our rain runoff to not have to work against a paved surface. So I think we should try where we can to look at our projects through an environmental lens as well. And I think this is definitely an opportunity where it's a $600,000 expense we can forego.
Thank you. Comments? Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And I'm going to be supporting Councillor Crone and Councillor Roy DeClemente. I just wanted to call out if there's concerns too from a exposure or liability perspective, I would encourage the town staff, if they do feel that the Health and Safety Committee did bring something forward, that there could be some risk mitigation items to be put in place, such as signage, to make people aware that this is a gravel operations yard. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but I will defer to the town staff in looking at other ideas instead of spending $600,000 when there could be other items that would reduce risk and liability for the town as a whole. So thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Through Madam Mayor, we're now bringing forward the proposed amendment that was provided by Councillor Roy DeClemente and Councillor Crone, I believe, also mentioned. So we've combined Councillor Roy DeClemente. The last clause has been now changed to reflect the standard that we've been using for amendments.
Questions? Comments? All those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any more amendments for us today? Council, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, we received information back to us regarding the fleet vehicles, both in the previous meetings and through commentary and then further discussion. But I'm not looking to beat up in Parks, Recreation, and Culture. But I still just can't get my head around PR 25024, that Jeep Wrangler that is used, and I'm happy if I'm wrong, but I believe that that vehicle is used specifically for baseball diamond grooming. And I did a bit of an investigation on it. Just because spending $50,000, there's 74,000 kilometers on that vehicle, and if it's only used for grooming, is there a way that we can delay that $50,000 expense? Because if it's not, and the vehicle is at its end of life, I am happy to support going forward, but I just think in this day and age with a vehicle with 74,000 kilometers on it that's used for baseball diamond grooming, I think there's an opportunity here for us to save $50,000. So I'd like to hear Mr. Karmazin's comments regarding that specific vehicle.
Mr. Karmazin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that specific vehicle is used for grooming multiple baseball diamonds throughout the municipality. It's also used for some snow clearing where we have tight turn radiuses, in particular at some of our trailhead parking. In addition to that, some of the village core areas that require tight turn radiuses for clearing intersections. We could revisit with Fleet Services, looking at potentially reusing that vehicle somewhere else in the municipality with the replacement schedule that's been provided with the 2025 budget proposal.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thanks. Through you, Madam Mayor. So what you just said was, we need a new one, but we're happy to see if we can use it elsewhere. Is that what you just said?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Councillor John said it better than I would have. So yes, I completely concur with the statement.
Okay, so with that information and our staff and experts directing us that we need a new one, then I'm happy to stand down from a possible amendment to that item then. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente, please.
Thank you. I wanted to commend staff for having used some of our older vehicles in order to for our summer staff, so that we didn't have to rent. Because what we were doing is we were renting vehicles for our park staff to maintain our parks. and that was an expense. So using our older vehicles that were at end of life, but we're extending their useful time for the municipality, avoided several costs. I didn't know, when I read this, I didn't see that the Jeep Wrangler was the one that had been flagged, but that there was a Chevy Silverado that was going to be, that was flagged as a potential cost avoidance, but then noted that repairs could be as high as $20,000 in 2025. So I didn't know if, I know that Mr. Meggett is in the audience, and if he had anything further to add to the Wrangler / Silverado discussion, I'd be happy to hear from him if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Good to have you with us today.
Good morning through you, Madam Chair. Great discussion on the vehicle. Completely agree. This is a unique asset, the Jeep Wrangler, because of its short wheelbase. It does provide a very critical asset for parks, that it is able to do diamond dragging to make sure that play surface is ready for use, that are widespread throughout the community. Many municipalities would use a tractor, but because of the amount of roading it has to do to get between communities to do the diamond preparation for use, really is well suited for that application. Credit to the CPRC team. They have tried to extend its use to winter to increase its utilization through the year, but it really is a good type of vehicle for the application it's used for. But I completely support that it will fill a good pool vehicle use, and will continue to try and offset other operating costs for rental equipment in lieu of just disposing of a vehicle with relatively low mileage. One of the caveats with this truck specifically is some electrical and wear issues that we have with it. That is just something we struggle with to make sure that it is reliable when it needs to be used throughout the summer period. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I'm not seeing any at this time. Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I've spoke about our vehicle replacement schedule before, and I would love the opportunity to sit down with Mr. Meggett and have a chat about how we do this, because quite frankly, I look at budgets every year, and we routinely get rid of vehicles that 90% of our population would love to have, our residents would love to have. When I look at the list we've got here, I've got 3 vehicles at home that are older and have more kilometers on them than these vehicles, and I'm quite happy to drive them. I think that, I think we get awfully excited over having to do some brakes and put some tires on and fix an exhaust once in a while. That's vehicle maintenance. I'd like to suggest that it's time that we maybe had a little bit of a look at our replacement schedule. And I mean, we extend some years here, which is good. That's what we need to do. And I know the problem with that is it messes up your replacement schedule somewhere further down the line. But I really think there's something that we could do here. And I don't know, that's my opinion. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Councillor Horn, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with what my colleague is saying, and I think Councillor Foster, in so few words, I think you're actually proposing an amendment that we set out to review our fleet management strategy. Are you going down that road? Because if you are, I'm with you.
If I might, I don't know that it's an amendment that has to do directly with the budget. I'll take the information given to me. The CAO is kind of looking to weigh in on this one, but I think it's something that maybe we should do in the future. I don't know that it's an amendment complete to this budget.
Thank you. Mr. CAO, did you have?
Madam Mayor, certainly if committee and ultimately council would like us to review our fleet maintenance schedule, we can do that. It would not be an amendment to the budget per se, but I can also say that it's something that we do on an ongoing basis as part of our asset management planning. So quite frankly, it's not out of the ordinary of what we do routinely, and Mr. Meggett and his team do that as a matter of practice, and happy to share some insights on that at some point if that's appropriate, if council wishes.
Councillor Crothers, you have your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to weigh in on this one. when I look at this, I think about our climate emergency declaration and how we all signed on to do whatever we can to help protect the environment. And certainly throwing out half-used vehicles doesn't really help with climate change. So anything we can do to help extend the life on these vehicles, not only should it be looked at through the lens of what money we're saving, but how we're not putting them into a landfill. I know they go to metal recycling, but making sure that we're extending the life, getting all their usability out of them so that we have the least impact on the environment possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
I'm Councillor Roy DeClemente.
Oh, sorry, it's okay. Thank you to Councillor Crothers, and go ahead, please.
I guess I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. However, I also understand that staff are telling us that these aren't half-used vehicles, and that municipal equipment is not the same and is not used in the same way as our private vehicles are, and for the most part. Some of them are, but these are vehicles that during a snowstorm are running 24/7. They've got different drivers, but the vehicles themselves are continuing to run. And whether they're idling because because staff are testing water, or they're dealing with salting parks walkways or whatever it is, they're still running and they're treated differently. And if staff, who are the subject matter experts, are telling us that these vehicles are at end of life and that they've done what they can to extend those lives and their usefulness, and then repurpose them for other areas of the organization, I'm good with that. We struggle with it every budget season because as property owners and as vehicle owners ourselves, it's hard to wrap your head around something that doesn't seem as old as what we might be driving ourselves. So maybe that discussion comes down to, maybe we need a tour of the ops yard and understand that, you know, there's the pickup truck that passed me on Mount Albert at the corner of this morning. It was covered in rust. And, you know, that's not a safe, necessarily a safe workspace for our staff. So maybe we need to see for ourselves because we sit here and we don't necessarily understand. So I'm okay with the information that's presented for us today, but I think we do need to have a better understanding, and maybe that's just maybe it's a show and tell to get that feeling about it. The question I had was with respect to the electric vehicle project. I know it's dependent on a grant. So it has a very big price tag, and we're not necessarily, I guess my question is, are we at the point where we're going to be acquiring electric vehicles for our fleet? If we do that, will we be able to charge them if we don't get the grant and don't undertake this project?
General Manager Molinari.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. And Jeff, if you want to step in, be my guest. But we do have electric charging stations now at a number of our facilities that will service us for the current time. This project there's a grant, so there's potential to get some. It's not 100% dollars for the town. We're getting some assistance with it, and it future-proofs us. So do we need those charging stations next year immediately? I think the answer to that is no, but it's certain we are moving in the whole world is actually moving in an electrification direction, and so having that infrastructure ready to go when we need it makes sense. So it really comes down to, if the grant comes through, then great, let's move forward. If the grant doesn't come through, then, you know, yeah, we can wait a couple of years, but not too many years.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we could continue to acquire electric vehicles even if we didn't receive the grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Comments? Not seeing any at this time. number 2. So I have, excuse me, before me, be it resolved that the 2025 budget submission addendum package number 4 be received. There discussion? I have a mover. Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we can have some conversation around the beach volleyball courts. So that's Parks and Rec 25-003. In a year where we're doing significant service level increases with the Health and Active Living Plaza, and we're doing park structure replacements, this felt like something that was a nice to have and not a need to have. I personally haven't had anyone ask me for public beach volleyball courts, but maybe others have. I do know we have a private facility over at Yonge and Green Lane that seems to be pretty busy during the summer months. So I wanted to have a bit of discussion with this one.
Thank you. Councillor Crone, you also wanted to have some discussion with
Yeah,
this one?
I just want to respond to that. I would remind my colleagues, through you, Madam Mayor, that we deferred this item last year. And so I would, we keep kicking this down the road. It's, we can, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. We deferred it last year. I have people in my ward that are asking for it. They've been patient. I could happy to roll up my sleeves and look at other areas to cut, but I would not be in favor of cutting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, hey, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. As also serving as a councillor in Ward 3, I have been specifically and directly requested with residents in Ward 3 that there is a shortage of activities for youth and for other members of the community in Mount Albert, which is geographically located a fair distance away from the Health and Active Living Plaza, which will be opening up next year. And so I would like to suggest that we do follow through with a commitment to providing other health and active activities and opportunities for activities with the facilities in Ward 3. So I would not be in support of withdrawing the beach volleyball court in Mount Albert. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple hands up. Councillor Crothers first, please.
Thank you. I know we discussed this last year, and I just wanted to be reminded about exactly where we are looking at locating this.
Mr. Carmerson, go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we're looking at locating this particular amenity at the Lions Park in Mount Albert.
So when we're talking about it being used by youth, it would not be within walking distance of any homes in that location. So I think I might have raised this last year. I worry about the location not being as accessible, being car dependent. I know it requires a significant amount of space, so that's always a consideration as well. I'm wondering if we can take a look at if there is a better place for this that residents could walk to. To Councillor Leahy's point, youth activities are important, and youth being able to get there, I think, is a big concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carmerson, comment?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we could look at the potential of that amenity at Mount Albert Community Center Park. That is within the village core of Mount Albert and is within a walking distance of residences. that may be an option that council may wish to consider.
I would like to consider that. I think that would be a much better use of this expenditure. I'm also wondering if PRC does any sort of heat map or something that shows where our facilities are. And I think with the opening of the HELP in Queensville, it's certainly going to put a lot of facilities into that one area. And it would be very interesting at a future date to have a presentation on where our amenities are and how they're being used and what populations are being served. Because I think it'd be very interesting to make sure that there's no areas that are being missed. Thank you.
Mr. Karmazin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, with our parks and facilities planning, we try to do our best to take a look at catchment areas and drive times and facility fit. And staff can certainly provide council with additional information that validates that process.
I think that would be very helpful. I think about the west side of Holland Landing as being somewhat underserved over there. So it'd be nice to see what's being provided in each area of the town. Thank you.
Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Karmazin, is the beach volleyball facility listed in our Parks and Rec, our active living master plan as a resource that we need to be investing in, no matter where we put it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, not specifically. However, the master plan does reference to keep apprised of emerging trends as well as activities within the industry. This is no different than some of the emerging trends that you've seen within our parks inventory, such as pickleball, disc golf, are good examples of emerging trends in the industry, and beach volleyball is no different. It is a sport that has been gaining momentum over the years, and we have received resident requests for those types of facility amenities, and that's why we have made the presentation to council in the budget for the for this particular capital project.
Thank you.
Councillor Leahy.
Thank you very much through you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make one final comment, and that is that we continue to focus on the original location that was suggested by the General Manager of the Parks and Rec Department for a beach volleyball court in Mount Albert. There are other considerations, including parking, and so, but rather than having two beach volleyball courts, is my understanding correct that there's also a beach volleyball court being planned for the Health and Active Living Plaza?
Mr. Karmazin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. Again, in an effort to service different communities, we have planned beach volleyball for the Health and Active Living Plaza in Queensville.
Well, perhaps we might, if we're looking at ways to cut costs, and with all of the incredible amenities that are coming at the Health and Active Living Plaza, that if we have to make a choice initially to proceed with the budget for next year, that we focus on the beach volleyball court in Mount Albert and defer the beach volleyball court at the Health and Active Living Plaza. And what is the parking capacity at the Health and Active Living Plaza?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the parking capacity is over 300 vehicles, and then we do also have lay-by parking at the east elevation of the facility and on-street parking on Jim Wurtson Drive, which would put the approximate parking count at just over 370 vehicles.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just one follow-up comment. So I would like to put forward an amendment that we defer the beach volleyball court at the Health and Active Living Plaza, and that we proceed with the focusing on the one in the Mount Albert Lions Park, which we have deferred already by 1 year.
Go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, just to hopefully assist in the discussion you're having right now, I just want to seek clarification from the treasurer. Is it my understanding correct that both of these are development charge funded, so there's no impact on town tax reserves or town taxes? Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So they both could go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted there to be clarity amongst council members on what the funding sources were for this, because I think it's a relevant part of your consideration. I just wanted to point that out, that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. It was my understanding that for help, the master, I'm not going to get the technical term, but the master plan and design of this, we've already approved and moved forward. I understand if we wanted to pull the plug on something for help, we could. I don't think that would be prudent. That would be my opinion, and that is based on the fact that when we look at the user groups that are wishing to participate in beach volleyball, this is not simply a youth. It's not simply a youth activity. Quite frankly, some of these participants are extremely competitive, and this is becoming a very serious sport. I think that having the facilities, obviously, at help would be prudent. Now, as it relates to the Mount Albert option, I actually see benefits in both Mount Albert Lions Park, but then also the community center. The call out that the travel time that or the inability for it to not be accessible, the Lions Hall or the Lions, the kind of the grounds, because it is very impressive what is being built there over time between the soccer pitches, the hall. It is just turning into a wonderful place, and regardless of pedestrian access, it's really turning into a destination. But I can also at the same time see the argument for being able to hold it in downtown Mount Albert. I actually think there would be a strong economic benefit if it was held at the community center. The more people that we can bring downtown, the better. I won't be supporting the councillor's amendment to remove the progress that we've made in help. I'm not looking to slow down progress. But I would be happy to support any of my colleagues that wish to explore the location. I think we need to be continuing to invest in Mount Albert, and progress takes time, and we can't do it all at once. And so if we delay, Mount Albert gets left behind, and that's just not acceptable. And I think that beach volleyball is not just simply something for our youth. It is something that will actually have an economic benefit for the town of Mount Albert, and I wholly support progress and growth.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor John said it well. I really do not want to see this, any volleyball courts deferred, quite frankly. I think we kicked it down the road a year last time. We need to proceed. But I also think, as Councillor Johns pointed out, if we defer it, the volleyball courts at the help, I think there's actually a cost to that. That when you're doing all the upgrades at the same time, there's an economy of scale there. If we were to stop and that portion, come back a year later and do it, there's startup costs where you have to bring the equipment in and whatnot. And so I appreciate the intent of deferring it, but I think fiscally it makes sense to do, if you're going to do it all at once. So with respect to the volleyball courts planned for Mount Albert, I I'm quite happy to explore options, the best spot. I think the best spot should win, whether it's at the Lions Club Park or at the community center or maybe somewhere else. Walkability is a great desire. I think we need to take that into consideration, but there's many variables into it as well. But I would probably forego deferring the volleyball court at the help, but I maintain that we must go forward with the volleyball courts again for Mount Albert. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Councillor Carruthers, I know you've had your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to get clarity if there was an amendment on the table, because I think Councillor Leahy said she wanted an amendment, but I'm not sure she formally put one on the table. And if so, I want to know what line item it was, because I'm looking through this and I believe the help parkland is all one budget. And so to Councillor Crone's point, to remove the volleyball courts and put in sod only a year later to pull up the sod and put in the volleyball courts doesn't make any sense to me. When you have a greenfield site like that, that is all just dirt. Being able to plan it all at once makes so much more sense. So I don't think that pulling the volleyball courts at the help really makes any economic sense. But if there is indeed that amendment, I'd like to know just what line item Councillor Leahy is referring to. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe that the proposed amendment is a current budget item. I'm wondering if General Manager Marshall, if you could comment on this, please.
Sure. So through you, Madam Mayor. So this process is to make amendments to the 2025 budget. And since the HELP project is a previously approved capital project, it's not included in the 2025 budget. So if you were to make an amendment, if you want to change something in the HELP project budget, you'd have to do it outside of this process. So you wouldn't be able to make an amendment to change that here.
Thank you for the clarity.
Councillor Roy DeClemente and then Councillor Lee.
So, thank you. I wanted to extend my thanks to my colleagues here at the committee. I raised this as wanting to have a discussion about the project. I think we've had a fulsome discussion, and I appreciate all of the insights that have been shared today. I'm comfortable with moving forward with the location where it's at now. We spent quite a bit of money designing the park in Mount Albert, in the downtown of Mount Albert. And so to go back and revisit that where we have flat land available to us at the Lions, that's why staff have recommended it to us, and so I'm fine with that. What I would like to suggest, however, to Councillor Johns' point about bringing more people to the downtown of Mount Albert, is for us to find a way to install or to create information at the Lions Park that directs people to the resources and the services that are in the village, because a lot of people are driving in from out of town to access those facilities. They're coming for soccer games and they're driving quite a distance. And then if they want to get a pizza or they need they want to visit the stores, they don't know that just across the hill there's a whole village with lots of resources. So if there's a way for us to advertise those services and drive business into the downtown core, I'd be wholly in support of that as well. But I'm okay to move forward. I did not put a motion on the table to amend the project. I just wanted to have a discussion, and I thank all of you for your insights.
Councillor Leahy, based on the background information provided by the treasurer, would you like to formally? deal with the motion at this time. Yes, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, yes. Well, first I want to, through you, Madam Mayor, want to acknowledge the comments about better signage. I think that that's been part of the discussions of the revitalization projects, and I know that there have been, for many, many years, while I was also a member of the Mount Albert Village Association, discussions with the town about improving signage on Highway 48, for example, so that people passing on their way up to the cottage, et cetera, and cyclists would be more aware of all of the economic offerings and businesses that we have in downtown Mount Albert. So there might be some opportunity there to work in conjunction with the revitalization project to improve upon the signage to encourage economic development. But to address the amendment that I put forward, that we proceed with the Mount Albert Beach Volleyball Court, but defer the help one, I would like to thank our CAO for providing clarity that where the funding is coming from is from the DCs. So my only question then is to answer a fellow councillor's inquiry as to which item line number was being referred to, because we're under Parks, Recreation and Culture. I'd just like to verify with General Manager Karmazan that PR-25-003, when it refers to beach volleyball courts, is that referring to both beach volleyball courts, or is the Health and Active Living Plaza beach volleyball court in a separate item line? And should there be the S be removed from that item line? I just like clarity from General Manager Karmazan, but regardless, I would be happy to withdraw the amendment that I put forward previously. Yeah.
Mr. Karmazin?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the beach volleyball courts located at the Health and Active Living Plaza would be part of the broader capital project that was previously approved by council.
So just for clarity, the beach volleyball courts referred to under PR 25-003 are the Mount Albert beach volleyball courts specifically, correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would say through you to Councillor Roy DiClemente, you wanted discussion, you got it. This is good. And it does my heart well to see everyone talking about a ward that isn't their own. And, I've heard, positive, constructive comments about what can we do for Mount Albert for councillors that aren't in Mount Albert. And so I think that speaks to the collaborative nature that we have here. And I really do appreciate that from my colleagues, that you actually care about the rest of the community. It's good. But listening to Councillor Roy DiClemente, it triggered something in my mind that I meant to say earlier. I would really love to see one day, and it might not be in my lifetime, but I would love to see a way forward that maybe we work with the region, with the province, being Highway 48 is under provincial jurisdiction. There's got to be a way we can figure out how to get a trail from downtown to the Lions Park. I don't know if we'd have to drill a tunnel under Highway 48. that comes with some expense. But anyway, there's got to be something we can do to make it a little more accessible if someone wants to hoof it from downtown Mount Albert to the Lions Park and back and forth. So anyway, I throw that out for future consideration. But I thank my colleagues for their collaboration.
I'll note that, thank you. See you hiking across Highway 48. And the train tracks, yes. Are there any more questions or proposed amendments at this time? Go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, not looking to stop discussions on anything, but I do have a question as it relates to kind of next steps, so I can get clarity in my head on the process, what we would be taking. And again, I'm not looking to jump on to stop any other conversations on amendments, but I do have the question is, what are the next steps when this conversation does wrap up? So thanks, Madam Mayor.
General Marshall, it appears there's no additional amendments or questions. Could you please advise of the next steps and what members should expect?
Oh, thank you. So through you, Madam Mayor. So once the discussions are completed and all the amendments are finalized, the recommended amendments get forwarded to council on December 3rd for approval. And if those are approved, then the mayor has 7 days to decide whether she would like to veto any of those amendments. If there's no vetoes to those amendments, the budget is deemed adopted at that time. If there are vetoes, they'll happen, and then council will have on their meeting at December 17th an opportunity to decide whether they'd like to try to overturn that veto. And whatever happens at that vote at that time, which requires a 2/3 majority, sticks, and that's the final budget.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Just as a final comment, through you, Madam Mayor, to the staff, I just want to thank you so much for all of the hard work and effort that you've put into this, and not just simply on the process now, but I think that I'm very proud of the process, and Madam Mayor, you didn't need to direct it in this way through your strong mayor powers. You could have set up a different process, but you didn't. You allowed us all the opportunity to have a discussion openly and transparently here. And I think we've got so many wins for the community, and the fact that regardless of where this specifically lands, we will still come out of this as having the lowest relative tax rate in all of York Region. We are still debt-free, and we are providing service level increases and progress for the community, and I'm very proud of the financial position that we're in, and I'm proud of what we're delivering for our residents. And so thank you, Madam Mayor, and sincerest thanks to the staff for all their hard work and effort in getting us here. So thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are any other comments or questions? Oh, Councillor Leahy, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to thank the staff and my fellow councillors for going through this process for the first time with the mayor having strong mayoral powers, and it's a process that we're adjusting to. But I would just like to state clearly for those watching at home and for those in the council chambers now that it is a legal requirement for any municipality to be debt-free. So when a fellow councillor says that we're still debt-free, I should certainly hope so.
Madam Mayor, if I could. So one, I just wanted to call out that I believe my fellow councillor is confusing the term debt versus deficit, and I believe she's wrong in her statement, and I believe that I am correct in the statement, and if I could ask Mr. Marshall for clarification, but I believe my fellow colleague is confused.
Mr. Marshall.
So through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the councillor is correct. Many municipalities issue debt and have debt. The majority of them have debt. There is a stipulation under the Municipal Act that municipalities aren't allowed to run operating deficits, which means you don't have enough revenues to cover your operating costs. So that is something that's entrenched in the Municipal Act, but you're still allowed to issue debt on capital.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor,
Go
for
ahead,
that
please.
clarification. Yes, because I think the terminology is very important to have clear for all of those understanding the budget process. Thank you.
I'm now at item G. Could I have a mover for the resolution, please? Councillor Johns. Be it resolved that the meeting of the Budget Committee adjourn at 10:13 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. And I just want to thank all members of council. It was interesting listening to people talking about different communities there where perhaps they have a lot of knowledge about the facilities that are there, and in other cases where, as we found during this summer, some facilities that we found collectively and programmed very well for our community. So thank you to staff for listening to the needs that are out there and making sure that we are able to deal with all of our requests with our community. It's an active community, probably more active than a lot of the Southern Ontario communities when it comes to activities such as this. Thank you very much for allowing us to make a big difference in many communities here. It doesn't matter where you live, it matters where the people that we are serving live. So thank you. And with that, I'm all finished. I'm adjourned. All these new processes, we're good to go.